Hello, my name is Bill Bross and I'm a developer here at Veith Consulting. Today's video is going to focus on custom fields within event registration. If you're looking for a more general event registration training, check out our YouTube channel. We have many other videos that are more general. This is going to focus solely on how to create custom fields and all the different options that you'll have. Alright, the page I'm on here is page 3 out of 4 of event registration. And this is where you create and edit and manage all of your custom fields for each event. So this comes after the event packages and the event general information pages. Event fields you can use to collect a lot of different information, ranging from anywhere from lunch options to seminar and session options, and you can track a lot of information through these as well. Now, looking at the main page here, we'll just go down one at a time. We've got our general information and instructions right up here at the top. And then immediately we've got the button here to add a new field. So anytime you need to add something new, this button is where you want to start. And then we can drag and drop on our fields to reorder them however we like. So all you have to do for that one is just click on it and then drag it up and down. And it will tell you if it's an invalid placement for whatever reason. But you can drag and drop these several up and down just like that, and it scrolls through the page. And any changes you make will take effect instantly. All right, as we go down to the bottom of the page here, you'll see we've got our continue button. So once we're done with setting up our custom fields, we can click continue to finish on to the end here. Okay, and then going back up here to the very top, you'll notice here that each box contains a field, and we've got information all about it. So this is the field title up here. So this one has times in it. This one is just Monday lunch. These can be whatever text you want, and that's what's going to display to the attendee when they're looking at the field so that they know what they are. Down below that, we've got the field type that it is. So both of these top ones are selection options, but displaying as radio buttons, whereas this one down here is just a normal selection field. And we've got several types of these. We have text, multi-line, checkboxes. We'll go over those in just a little bit. But each of those, again, changes how the field presents to the user and what you can do on it. We've got additional data on here as well. So if you've made it required, if we've enabled attendance tracking on it, down here if we have a cutoff date on them, it's going to show all that information here at the top. So you basically have a very quick view to see some of your options that you've got set up for the field. And then selection options, since those ones are basically a drop-down or radio buttons, you're looking at one field which contains lots of options where the user can only pick one. So we have the selection options you currently have set up here listed below. And then also you're able to tie fields to specific packages that you set up. So if you've done that here and you only want a field to appear for specific packages, we'll list those down here for you so you can see what packages different things are tied to. And then over on the right here, we've got our instructions. And these are instructions that you will add to give instructions to the attendee when they're registering. So these will display in line with the other fields, or with the field so that people can see the information about it as they go. Then we've got a couple of options up here. We can copy a field. So if you've got a lot of similar ones, you can copy them and then just modify them a little bit, and it will copy over all the information that you set up for it. You can click the pencil to edit it here, and that will edit anything about the field. And then finally, you can delete them here. So if you have made one erroneously, you can delete it right there. All right, now that we've looked at this page and gone over this one, let's take a look at what adding a new field or editing one looks like. It's the same exact screen for adding and editing. So if we add one right here, the very first thing that it's going to do is going to ask us what field type we want to make the field. And that's the things I was talking about before, such as selection boxes, check boxes, multi-lines, text, things like that. So these are all right up here. So the very first one, text field, this is just a normal regular text input box. What that is great for is if you're asking for just a word or a couple of words for somebody. So like mother's maiden name, or what's your ID number, or anything like that. It can be alphanumeric, but generally less than 100 characters. A text field is great for that. The next one down here is a selection, and again, that's one field where it's either going to be a drop-down box full of options, or it's going to be radio buttons, where you present a whole bunch of options and the user can only select one of them. So you'll be able to create your selection field, and then you can create all of the different options within it right after that within the field. We've got a checkbox. That's a pretty straightforward one. It's a box that the user can either check or uncheck. It's great for asking yes or no things. Or if you want to say, check any of the below options, something like that. It's great for those ones too. Multi-line text is next. What that is it's great if you're looking for a few sentences or a paragraph from somebody. So it will present a big text, like a big open text box that somebody can enter like a paragraph or so in. So it's great for questions like, what were your impressions of the conference, or what can we do next year? Things like that, where you want somebody to give a few sentences to you. Next down, we've got numeric. Numeric fields are when you just want to like to sell a number of a certain thing. So if you want to say, you know, how many tickets do you want, you can make this a numeric field, and it will charge a certain amount based on, you know, what number they enter into the numeric field. Next down, we have open donation. This is if you just want to give somebody an open box where they can type in a dollar value and it will just add it to their registration. So most people do use it for donations, but other people just, you know, if you want to add any kind of money along the way, that's a great thing for them to use for it. And then finally, we have a text caption. And this isn't really a field, it's exactly what it says. It's a text caption that shows up between the fields. And it's great to break up if you have a very long registration. You can break up sections with it. Or you can do all sorts of different things with text caption to make the registration look a little bit nicer, especially if you have a whole lot of fields. It comes in very handy. So let's take a look at, actually we'll set up a checkbox first here and see what different options we have there. And the options differ a little bit depending on which field type you select, but they're mostly the same across all of them. Okay, the field name here, this is just how it's going to show up to people. That's what they're going to see when they look at the field on the registration. So we'll just put in test checkbox. For instructions here, again, that's going to be the instructions in the display that shows up directly beneath the field. So anything you enter there, the user can look at that and see that as they're registering. The cutoff date. This is if you want to only want the field to show for a specific amount of time. So normally all fields will show for the duration of the registration. But if you wanted to, certain fields to cut off a certain point earlier, all you have to do is put in a date here, and whatever date you put in will be the last date that this field would show. And then available on date, it sort of does the same thing but a little opposite. If you put a date in here, the field will remain hidden until it hits that available on date, and then that would be the very first date that it would show up. So you can use these a little bit to manipulate when and how the fields show up for the registrants. We also have an option for restricted. If this option is selected, only admins will be able to see and select this option. Otherwise, it will be completely hidden. This is great if you want to add in information that the attendees may not necessarily know or you want them to enter, such as like if you want to enter a booth number for them, or if you're tracking something else that only admins can see. That's a great use for that. We also have the option to enable attendance tracking for the field. If we enable this one, anybody that selects the field will be entered into be eligible for attendance tracking, and you'll be able to select whether or not they attended specific sessions or fields in another part of this module. So that can really allow you, and directly below that we have credit hours. So you can also track credit hours across an event. So you can see how many sessions they attended, mark them as attended, and then total up their credit hours for things like that. If you have any questions about this particular area, let us know. We're still building parts into this one. So any kind of feedback or customizations are definitely possible. Down below this, we have tie field to specific packages. Now, normally every field is going to be available for any package that's chosen. It won't matter. However, if you check this box right here, you can say, I only want this test checkbox to show up if these packages are selected. So if you say if the pantry member or the student package is selected, they won't ever even see this test checkbox here. So that, again, can be used to limit options based on member type or options that you give them or things like that. So that can be very useful there. Okay, so we'll change that. And then finally, we have a cost, if any. So you can give this checkbox a cost, or if any field a cost, and if they select it, it will add that amount to their registration. So this can be used to say, add, a dinner plan to my registration or something like that. It can be used for. And then openings available here. If you only have a limited amount of openings for a specific field, you can enter that one in here. And once that many have been selected, it will hide this field and prevent people from registering for it. Now down below here, these are additional data fields. These don't really do much for the registration. Like they don't really affect the field in any way, but they can be used to capture or provide additional data about the field. This include an itinerary ticket. We have an option for dynamic badges. They can print different badges based on sessions that people pick and generate itineraries based off of that. So if you're using that one, this option will include it in the itinerary badge that's printed off. We can hide data fields during registration. If this is selected, any information that you enter here will not show up at all for this field during registration. So if you just want to keep this information on file and use it for different things, but not display it to the registrant, you can click that and it will hide it. Include on badge and ticket printout. So again, if we're using the dynamic badges, we can create badges for the specific ticket. And we get different options if we choose that one. We can include it for all attendees, even if they don't choose it. And then we can choose the different type of badge layout. If you have questions about this one, please contact tech support. We've set this up specifically for a few clients, but we can modify it for pretty much anyone. So these are down here below are to capture additional data, so we can say the location of the specific field. So if we've got a session that takes place in a certain building, we can add a speaker to it, we can add a date, and we can add a start time and an end time to it as well. And then we can enter some custom text as well that will show up under certain circumstances. So again, these are just for most registrations, these aren't used, but for very complex ones where you need to capture a lot of data and keep track of things, these can make a big difference and be very useful. All right, so all we do is at the bottom once we're done is we click continue, and it will save this data and create this field for us. And once this page loads here, we can scroll all the way down to the bottom and we'll see our test checkbox right here. Now you'll notice something that doesn't appear on the other fields, it only works for checkboxes, is we have this add dependent field option, and we've got a little infographic next to it that we can click and get information. So if you ever forget anything I'm saying here, you can get it all right back here about dependent fields. Dependent fields are based on checkboxes, and essentially a dependent field means if I create a dependent field off of this one, it means that that dependent field will not show unless this checkbox is checked. And we can tier multiple ones beneath each other if you want to, and make them dependent upon each other. So that's great if if you say like, is your billing address different than your shipping address? And if they click the box and say yes, then you can show 5 or 6 more fields to collect that data that normally won't be shown. So you can kind of hide data that is irrelevant to users until it is relevant. So that can come in really handy with those dependent fields. All right, I think that's pretty much oh no, actually, I take that back. Let's take a look at the selection boxes because they're a little bit different here. So we'll go up to here at the top. We'll edit this one here. We'll let this page load up. So again, you'll see that this is the same page we were on before, but we have a couple different options here. We can use this one as radio buttons if we want to, and that's specifically for drop-down selection boxes. Now, by drop-down box, I mean a box that looks like this one right here that says Layout 1. So all the options you create will be housed in a box, just like this one that we can drop down. Whereas radio buttons here are ones that, they'll display sort of like checkboxes one after another, so you'll see them all at the same time. But the user will only be able to select one of them, just like with a selection box. So the main difference between them is that the drop-down boxes hide most of the data and you have to click to see it, whereas the radio buttons show you everything all at once. So depending on how many options you have, it can determine on what you want to do with that one. But anyway, so once we go past here, let me check that. Once we get to this same page, because it's a selection field, if we click continue, we're not going to go back to the normal field page. We're going to go to the page that shows our options. So anytime you need to edit options on a selection field, all you need to do is edit and save it, and then you'll get right back to the selection options here. Selection options, they work pretty much the same way as the other ones. You just have fewer things you can add. So if we add new option here, we get the option name, so that's what's going to show up as the radio button or in the drop-down box. And we have a description. The description will only show if you're using it as radio buttons. If you're using it as a selection box, there's no real place for it to show. But if you're using it as radio buttons, they'll show up beneath the options there. And then we can also add some additional data to these if we want to. So we can add a speaker, a location, and we can add a cost to things. So we can even have a selection box that has things that are free and options that cost money. So that's a great thing to use if you're making a bunch of options. We can also check one as the default option, which means that that option will be automatically selected when they start. So only one default option can be chosen per selection field, but that can automatically select things to make things a little bit easier. We also can have a cutoff date for these ones, so it works the exact same way. If you pick a date in here, that option will no longer show up after that date. And then we can add a start time and an end time. These are just additional data about it, but they can be used on some of the badges. And then we have openings available. So again, if we enter a 5 here, once 5 of these have been chosen, it will hide that option. It will no longer be selectable during registration. And then we can also add the number of credit hours. So if we're tracking attendance and tracking credit hours, we can add specific credit hours per option within the event or within the selection option. And as you create these, they will just create or line themselves up in a row in this table right here. And just like the normal fields, you can grab and drag and drop these, any way that you want. And that's the order that they'll show up in, either as the radio buttons or within the dropdown. And once you click continue here, this is going to take us right back to the main page that lists all the different fields. All right, I think that's pretty much everything for custom fields within event registration. I hope this video was useful, and as always, thank you very much, and have a nice day. Thank you.